hello. Hi, Waziri.
Hi madam, nimesema hello hello ukanitoa nje bwana.
Ati nini?
Umesalimia hello hello ukanitoa nje ndo nimerudi.
Oh, pole, 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 pole. Pole, mambo.
Mambo poa.
I hope you people are fine. I'm sorry I'm late kidogo.
Una wasiwasi.
But hali ya traffic kidogo but tuko sawa.
Sawa.
Any questions so far before tuendelee? No swali, ipo swali. Edu, ipo swali?
My side no question.
Your side no question.
Sina swali, tuendelee tu.
Tuendelee. Tulifika, we had looked at the scientific approach. It means we had finished on the classical approach, on the evolution of management theories. And today we're looking at now number 2 of the theories. We can be able to expound on the management, on the behavioral management approach, the second approach. Remember the classical? Exactly. Behavioral management approach. Yes, that's where we are. First time we discussed on the classical approach and the pre-classical approach. And we looked at the classical approach, especially on the Taylor, Fayol, and the Maxi Weber. So today we want to concentrate much more on the behavioral management approach. Now, from our notes, it says that the behavioral approach to management evolved mainly because of practicing managers discovered that adopting the ideas of classical approach failed to achieve total efficiency and workplace harmony. Why are they saying it failed to achieve total efficiency? Remember, under the classical approach, especially on the Frederick Taylor, he emphasized more on a human being to work as machine. And sometimes it is not practical where a human being can be able to work like machine, we're able to achieve 100% efficiency, we're able to achieve 100% output on what you're able to input in your organization. That's why now the disadvantages of the classical approach brought us about the behavioral management approach. The behavioral approach to management highlighted what classical advocated, what classical approach overlooked, that is the human aspect. Just a minute, kidogo tu. So we're saying, sorry for that. There's a technical hitch kidogo, lakini tuko sawa. We are saying that the classical approach emphasized much more on the efficiency, and therefore it did not consider you person, other person, or personnel who is working within the organization, your welfare. So it did not recognize the human aspect, the contribution of a person can be able to make within the organization. And therefore, the behavioral approach now emphasized more on what the classical approach overlooked, and which is now the human aspect. Just from the word behavioral. Behavior, you cannot be able to discuss behavior of a machine. You discuss the behavior of a person, of a human being. Talk about now the theory which emphasized on the behaviors. Now, behavioral management theories shows the human relation aspect of management and how productivity depends on workforce motivational level. The classical theorists looked at the organization from a production perspective. The behavioral advocates viewed it in form of from the individual viewpoint. Behavioral management theory can be broken into two classes, that is a human relation theory and behavioral science theory. In short, the behavioral approach, it emphasized on the human relation or the human aspect or the human resource within the organization. Remember, for classical, be it for Taylor or for Fayol, while he emphasized much more on their efficiency, it's only that the Max Weber tried a bit to come up with the aspect of human beings, where he talk about where a human can be, how you're supposed to relate to the human, so that's what we're able to achieve efficiency. However, even though he was checking on the human aspect, he did not check the human aspect as a whole. He related the human aspect in terms of efficiency. But on this case, on the behavioral, it is considering the human element or the contribution of a personnel as a whole within the organization and how an organization can be able to achieve its goal. In short, it focuses much more on the effectiveness, not efficiency. Classical major on efficiency, on how you can be able to reduce wastage and achieve efficiency. But behavioral management theory focuses much more on the effectiveness, on how you can be able to achieve or recognize human behavior within the organization and how you can be able to achieve organizational objective. So basically, we're saying that it is dividing the two behavioral or the two theories into two major classes. Just the way we talk about the classical approach being divided into scientific and others. So even the behavioral management theory has divided the relation into two major, that is the human relation theory and the behavioral science theory. Now, the first one, the human relation theory, it focuses on human beings, on personnel, on how you can be able to improve on the people within the organization and how best the people within the organization can contribute towards achieving of the organizational goal. And mostly, when you look about the behavioral approach, we're going to look at the three people, the two major ones. We're going to add another one. The two major people, number one, the Abraham Maslow, and also the Mark Gregory. That is the people known as the theory X and the theory Y. But we're going to also add another one. We're calling the theory Z. What we're saying, we have a Z generation. So we're going to look at what the theory X is. It talks about what theory Y also focuses about. Any questions so far? Koswali? Waziri swali?
Niko sawa mwalimu.
Haya, tuendelee. The human relation theory. Now, human relation theory focuses specifically on the individual needs and the resultant behavior of individuals and groups. This part, this theory, it's very simple. Very, very simple. Hata kama utakumbuka the human relation theory or the behavioral theory, even if you're not able to remember that, just remember that the behavioral management approach focuses on the human aspect and it considers the personnel contribution towards achieving of the organizational goal. And therefore, it focuses on the effectiveness of achieving the goals, not efficiency, unlike the classical. So the human relation theory, just from the word human, then relation. Relation is how do you relate with people? How do you mingle? How do you interact? How do you communicate with people? How do you be able to have a safer environment and a favorable working environment with people? So the human relation theory, it just focuses on how personnel within the organization or how departments within the organization can be able to mingle, can be able to interact, can be able to focus on achieving organizational goal and achieving harmony within the organization. That's why I say human relation focuses on the individual needs and the resultant behavior of individuals and groups. It takes an interpersonal approach to managing human beings. It presents the organization, which is made up of formal and informal element. When you say a formal element of organization, it is the structures of the organization. For example, you know, in every organization, we have the top management, we have the middle management, and we have the lower management. That is a structure, that is a formal management. Or sometimes basically the hierarchy of the organization, where say maybe you have the CEO, then you come into the finance, then you come to the head of department and all that. So we talk about now that structure of the organization, what called the formal element of organization. The informal is any other groupings within the organization which is not recognized under the organizational structure or in organizational hierarchy. For example, in the organization, you may have your different groupings. For example, you can say maybe you have a different department or within the finance, you have a small group which helps in discussing a particular area of maybe of study or expertise or the training aspect. So that is an informal. It is not part of the organizational structure. It is not recognized, but it is known within the organization. Or what people mostly say, the groups of motionnaire, the groups of motionnaire, also called the informal elements or the informal groupings within the organization. So the formal element of organization are its structures. The informal aspect of the organization includes the interaction between individuals. What I say, the motionnaire is better, but the formal are the one that is in the structure within. You can be able to recognize them, you can be able to know them within the organizational structure. So in this way, the organization is a type of social system. And now, when you say a system, it is the interaction or it is the integration of various units together, which helps in achieving a common objective. For example, you say a body system. When you say a body system, it means your body, it comprises of several elements which have been brought up together and they achieve a certain goal. For you to sit, for me to talk the way I'm talking, all my body elements, all my body parts, all my body units must agree for me to say a particular word. So talk about a system is just the interaction of various elements together. And we may have different types of system depending on where you are or depending on the type of the organization. For example, you may have an open system, which is a system, which is a type of organization, a type of a system which interacts freely with the environment, or the type of an organization which you accept input from an environment and you give output to the environment. Like most of us are within the open system platform. For example, education system, management system, manufacturing system, production systems are part of the open system. So that is just for you to be able to know on how you can be able to apply. So when you say when we talk about the organization is a type of a social system is a system which interacts freely with the environment. And because it interacts freely with the environment, it tends to affect the environment, and it also tends to be affected by the environment. For example, if your organization can be able to accept people from outside, and then these people can come in the organization, be molded, work within the organization, they tend to come up with their different ideas from where they come from, and then they come under improve the organization, or they are going to be improved by the organization. So that's what it's about. It's a social system. It's a system which interacts with an environment freely. I say this system should be managed to create individual job satisfaction and the resultant motivation of the individual. Note, much emphasis is placed on how individual interacts within the groups and the result group's behavior and performance. Remember, tumesema human relation, it just deals on how an individual, from the word relation, it deals on how an individual interacts with other individuals within the organization. Noting that the behavioral approach, this is an approach which majorly deals with effectiveness and the personal or the personnel or the human resource as part of the organization. Remember, when you are having an organization, you must pull together different resources for you to be able to achieve your organizational goal. And one of the resources, which is a very vital resource within the organization, which can enable an organization achieve its objective, it's a human resource. So the human resource, when you want to deal or you want to study on how they behave, or how they relate, or how they interact, or how they mingle within one another, with one another, then you're talking about the behavioral approach under the human relation theory. Now, elements of human relation theory. Now, since it deals with the interaction of human beings or the interaction of human aspect within the organization, number one, it focuses on people rather than machines and economics. Why? Because we want to understand how does human interact with the other persons, other personnel within the organization, or how does a person in department A, how can he or she interact with another person in persons B? Number two, it deals with organizational environment and not on mostly on social context. Why organizational environment is because we want to understand this human relation. They cannot work without being mentored, without being monitored, without being controlled. Therefore, that's why we're looking at this human relation, not only in any other form, but within the organization and how they are affecting the organization. And lastly, and there are things about the motivation. Remember, one of the principles of management, we talk about subrogation of individual interest to general interest, whereby you are subrogation of general interest to individual interest, or vice versa, whereby you are looking at, you want to subordinate, you want to bring together or collaborate or unify our individual interests within the organization and bring about to achieve an organizational goals. And therefore, for me to be able to put aside my interest for the sake of the interest of the organization, I have to have a motivational factor. I have to be motivated. I have to be promised. I have someone about to promise me. That's why Max Weber talked about the incentives, on how you can be able to bring about the incentive to achieve in order for any organization to throw away his interest and unify his interest to achieve the organizational goal. That's why I say in a human relation, we're going to look at the element of motivation, on how we can be able to motivate people to work together in terms of the teamwork and also bring about the coordination, brings about the cooperation within the organization in order to achieve organizational goal. The other element, or the core element, or the other factor we can go to achieve in aspect of the human relation, human relation theory, is the aspect of the fulfilling both organizational and individual interest. And lastly, the aspect of achieving effectiveness within the organization. So those are some of the elements you're looking at. But in an exam setup, or even in a working environment setup, any time about the human relation theory, about the effectiveness of human, on how best you can be able to achieve the human resource and be able to use a human resource in achieving organizational goal. And therefore, for you to be able to achieve a maximum human resource, you need to achieve, you need to have motivation, you need to have cooperation, you need to have focus on a person, focus on people. You need also to focus on the aspect of the fulfilling or in subordinating individual interest to the interest of the relation in terms of the organization. Now, let's look at someone who discussed much more the human relation, a person by the name of Eton Mayo. Yes. Gossip is one of the, exactly. They're doing very true. Gossip is part of organization, but it is part of the informal. It's part of the informal setup, which helps an organization, especially individuals, to be able to understand much more on the organization, and therefore they can be able to give their views. Remember, ukiwa kwa moshene sana, you'll tend to say what you like or what you dislike. I'm very sure maybe after the class you'll have a motion like kidogo, so hey mwalimu, hey walifanya, hey. So in that it helps. It really helps organization in achieving their goals. Why? Because there's some factors you cannot be able, or there's some things you cannot be able to explain in a formal setup. For example, assume umepatiwa a manager mpya, and this manager maybe hajui the culture of the organization or the norms of the organization. He has come with his or her norms. And therefore, for him to be able to understand more of the organizational culture, then he needs to be part of the parcel of the gossip. So gossip is part of the informal setup, and it's very helpful because it enables people to be able to understand more of the organizational culture and also to interact more, because it is from the moshenema, from the gossip or from that informal group that you can be able to know one another in depth, and also be able to understand one another, and therefore you're going to improve on the cooperation, you're going to improve on the relation, you're going to improve on how to best to interact with a person, and in that case you're going to know how to achieve your organizational goal with that kind of a person. So yes, it is. Any other? So let's look at another person, a person known as Eton Mayo. And Eton Mayo is thank you, Edwin. Much welcome. That's why I'm here. Much welcome. Let's look at an Eton Mayo. Eton Mayo, he is considered to be the father of behavioral management. Just like we talk about Fayol and Taylor as part in the classical approach, Eton Mayo mostly is considered to be the father of the behavioral approach or behavioral management approach. Why? Because he came up with a very good study, and this study called it a Hawthorne experiment. The Hawthorne experiment, this is an experiment where he was checking on how best a person can be able to produce output depending on some variables. He put up the variables and he wanted to check how can a person be able to produce products when you have different variables in place. For example, when you have lighting, how best can you go to produce when you have lighting? When you don't have lighting, how best can you go to produce? And from this study, the reason why it was called the Hawthorne's experiment, it is because it was done in Hawthorne University, and that's why it's called an Hawthorne experiment. And it was done on university students or students within the university, and they grouped themselves. They grouped themselves in groups, and you had only two groups, group 1 and group 2. And these groups, they were given different variables, and they were behaving differently depending on where they are, depending on the variable, the variable they have been subjected themselves in. So let's look at the Hawthorne studies to check what is Hawthorne study and understand much more on the Hawthorne study. So the Hawthorne study, it is in 1927, a group of researchers led by Eton Mayo and Fries of the Harvard Business Studies were invited to join in the studies in the Hawthorne Works of Western Electric Company, that is in Chicago. The experiment lasted up to 1932. So you can look at the years from 1927 to 1932. That is studies that took a lot of time. Remember when you said in your topic number 1, we said management is an art as well as science. And we said it is a science because it is having principles which have been well tested and have been proved to work and also have been documented. And therefore, you cannot just come with a principle which is just, we have not well tested. It is not universal applied. You cannot be able to, it has not been documented, or it has not been just come and then you say this is a study, this is a principle. No, it has to undergo through a series of so many stages. And therefore, one of the stages that for you to be able to come up with a fact, you have undergone an experiment. That's why this study took a long time from 1927 to 1932. All this time, they were checking on the different elements, different variables, subjecting people to different variables, and knowing how best they work, how best they can be able to perform. Remember, behavioral approach, we are just checking on the human element, human resource, human capital within the organization, and how best they can be able to improve on them for them to be able to achieve their goal and also achieve the organizational goal. So the experiment lasted up to 1932. The Hawthorne experiment brought out the productivity of employees, It is not function only to physical conditions of work and money, wages paid to them. In short, you're saying people are not only motivated by money or by salary. Money is not very good. Say they're not motivated by salary, or they're not being motivated by where they are and what they get in the organization, but also they are motivated by different factors. Remember, tulisema management or individuals within management, they can be affected by different factors. That's why Maxi Weber alikuja na an incentive program, whereby he said that we can be able to understand the human relation and therefore motivate them using incentives for them to be able to achieve. Gantt chart, Henry Gantt came with a Gantt chart, whereby he said sometimes when you pay worker more, he's motivated more. But sometimes it's not true. You may be paid more, you may be working, you may get in salary more, but the environment you are subjected in it may demotivate you to work. So this Hawthorne study just checked on all the variables which affect a human person in working within an environment. Remember, this is a steel company. Steel company is a company that comes up with a steel. So this is a steel company whereby they are checking, just a minute. Nani aliambukiza homa kati ya nyinyi? Nani alikuwa na homa last week akanipea homa?
Lawrence.
Na leo hayupo.
Ana bahati.
Masi, hauna notes? It is in the group. Notes kwa group, Masi. Check kwa group, check kwa group. Who else does not have notes?
Sijaipata mwalimu.
Yes, Masi?
Sijaiona. Sijaona hizo notes kwa group. Ndio maana nauliza.
Waziri confirm, ziko?
Kuna kitu ilitumwa lakini mimi masomo yangu ni haya ya class au mengine sijui nitasoma lini. Lakini kuna kitu ilitumwa. Let me check and send.
Please waziri nitumie nione.
Sahi, let me check.
Thank you.
Masi pole, iko kwa notes, iko kwa group. Haya, tuendelee. Tunasema sometimes you may be paid more, you may be earning more, but the environment you are subjected in or the company, the way the environment they have, it is not conducive. It is not satisfying for you to be able to work. It is not satisfying for you to be able to work effectively. And therefore, yeah, you can still resend, Waziri. Just resend. Oh, does not have automatic too? Kwani last time tunaongea
kwa sababu ziko mobu utatuchanganya mwalimu. Mtumie tu peke yake Masi.
mpaka Saidi ameongea, amesema mtumie peke yake, hataki clogging. Ati wanasema mtumie tu Masi peke yake, hawa hataki clogging. So we are saying sometimes the environment you are subjected in may not be favorable enough for you to allow you to be able to work to earn efficiently, ama to work effectively, not efficiently but effectively. So the Hawthorne studies checked all those variables and tried to come up with how best a human can be able to relate. Remember, tunaongea kuhusu the human relation and how best you can be able to achieve organizational goals within the organization. So the employees, the Eton ideas was to logically factor the far less important on the emotional factors in determining productivity. So yeye alikuwa anataka kuangalia when you are satisfied, the emotion part of a person. For example, kuna mtu within the organization, ukimpa cheo, yako sawa. It can be having, so long as umemuita boss, ama muita chairman, ama chair lady, even without the salary, ako sawa. Kuna mwingine, hata bado usimuite hizo vitu zote, lakini umpe pesa, yako sawa. Kuna mwingine, naye Maybe unamwambia wewe utafika saa 3, utatoka saa 10. That is the working environment, the working condition. Ukimwekea ziko sawa, yako sawa. Kuna mwingine he doesn't care about the working environment so long as he cares on what he gets home. So Beton Mayo, I'll try to come up with all these variables and put them in people and try to understand how can you really understand the human behavior. Remember, who you see psychologist, Beton Mayo is a psychologist, he was just a scientist who tries now to understand in terms of the psychologist part of a human being. How do you relate? What are the things which really affects you when it comes to productivity? So, Hawthorne studies, you can, for us to be able to understand the Hawthorne studies, we can understand in different portions, or in different categories, or in different elements. And in this case, we have divided these studies in 4 major studies. Number 1 is the elimination experiment. To help you understand better, Hawthorne alikuja na groups mbili. Aleka groups mbili. And most of these groups, they were considered of 12 individuals. And akatry, remember, in study, ilifanywa kwa watu wanatengeneza steel. People who are making steel. So, alikuwa anataka kuangalia, when these people are making this steel, when the first part is illumination, alikuwa anaangalia, ukiongeza mwangaza kwa room, do people work more or do people work less? Afi grupu nyingine anatoa mwangaza. Kwa hivyo grupu moja anawekea mwangaza, mwingine wanakosa kuwekea mwangaza. Anakuangalia which group can work better. Nile group iko na mwangaza yenye inafanya vizuri ama nile group inafanya kwa giza, inafanya not giza per se as giza but haina enough lighting. Within the organization, maybe in your organization, you check how has your, depending on the manager or depending on the theory of the owners, we call them the entrepreneurs, depending on the theories. Some people believe that when you want to be in a room, you can apply maybe a white coat. For example, in our room, this is cream. Other believe it has to have white. Other believe it has to be dark. Different people with different mentality. So, after Eton Mayo pata kuangalia within this production environment, when you have lighting within the organization, how best do people can be able to work? Let's look at this finding. Under the illumination experiment, the experiment was conducted to establish relation between the output and the illumination. In this case, is lighting, not lighting too. When the intensity of the light was increased, the output also increased. The output showed an upward trend even when the illumination was gradually brought down to the normal level. Therefore, it was concluded that there is no consistent relation between output of workers and the illumination in the factory. Illumination just lighting, where anakuwa group moja anawekea lights mingi. Amewekea maybe amewekea gypsum, amewekea lighting, afu wanafanya kazi hapo. So alikuwa na hii group nyingine hawana enough light. Yes, they have the light which is now the normal one, but they don't have enough lighting. So alikuwa anaangalia how are these two groups. He found that the group that has a lot of lighting used to produce more. But in the same case, after amewapatia enough lighting, even after reducing the lighting, the output still continue. And therefore, there was no correlation. There was not a bit of, you cannot say there was a really good reason why are people working with when the lighting is much than when the lightings are less. And therefore, he said there was no a perfect relation. Hakuna correlation between the two. Therefore, it's like saying whether there is enough lighting or there is no enough lighting, people are still working. So he wanted to check what are these things that motivate a human behavior. All right, why there is that when you have increased the light, the output increased. Kwa nini? Remember, ukienda kwa nyumba mpya, let's give an example. Ukienda kwa nyumba mpya, alafu weke mataa mengi kwa hiyo nyumba, you will tend to maybe want to stay more in that room. Maybe you want to spend a lot of time maybe on coaching and that. So even if now sometimes after you've been used to that being in that room, and then we reduce the lighting, ama stima zipotee, you will not do less. You will still do whatever you are used to do, even though it is not as per what you can be able to do. So that is the same thing that happens to this study. In one group, aliwaekea lighting, in another group, akawanyima light. But how wenye walipatiwa lighting mingi, they produced more. But even after reducing the lighting, the group continue reproducing. And therefore, in this case, he said there is no a relation. We cannot be able to establish a good relation between the lighting of the company and the production of the output. And therefore, the Mayo concluded by saying there was no enough reason, people are going to be motivated by other factors other than lighting. Number 2 of the study, he relay assembly on the test room experiment. Now, in this phase, it is aim of knowing not only the impact of the illumination on production, but also factors like length of working day, rest hours, and other physical condition. The researcher concluded that social psychological factors such as feeling of being important, recognition, attention, participation, cohesiveness at work, and non-directive supervision held the key high productivity. Now, he face ya pili, alitry, yes, alieka lighting, lakini remember, alikuwa na 2 groups. When you're having testing, you have 2 groups. Alikuwa na group moja yenye anaipatia variable, yenye ingine haipatii hiyo variable, alipatia kwa hiyo group ingine. So group ya kwanza alipatia lighting, hii ya pili akainyima lighting. Akapata ya kwamba this first group inafanya vizuri as compared to the other group, whereby the more the light, the more they work. But even once they have used to the lighting, even if he reduces the lighting, they continue produce, and therefore there was no perfect relation. Now, the second phase, he came with other factors, other test room factors, whereby for group moja, allow people to do rotation, job rotation, allow people to have rest, allow people to work within the numbers of hours. For example, akawambia mta work for 6 hours. Akawambia hii group nyingine, within the 6 hours you'll be having breaks, you'll be having tea breaks, you'll be having lunch breaks. But hii group nyingine hakuipatia hizo variables. Alipata kuangalia how are human beings or the workers, are they going to be affected by what are they subjected themselves, what the company subjects them to. And he found that there was a relation between how the people are behaving within the first group, which has been given the test factors, and this other group, which has not been given the test factors. For example, if I find that there was an upward trend within the group which was given the test factor. For example, when the people are given the breaks, when people have been given the working hours have been defined, when people are given the recognition, we have the management, you have the titles. That means you have been given titles to your position. It tells that people tend to work more towards achieving organizational goal than people who are not being given that title, or not given the rest hours, not given the predetermined working conditions or working hours. And therefore, akasema kuna relation. Why? When an organization shows you are important, when a company portrays that they cannot be able to work without you, that sense of importance, that sense of belonging comes in. And once it comes in within you, you can be able to work more because you know you are working for yourself. or you're working for the organization. Therefore, in this case, you're able to improve. So the same case which Eton Mayo now started realizing. Remember, he ilikuwa study, the household study. The house say ilifanyika kwa steel company where people are subject to different environments for the Mayo to be able to understand much more on the human relation. Number 3, on the interviewing programs. What about this? To say the objective of this program was to make a systematic study of the employees' attitudes, which will reveal the meaning which their working situation has for them. Therefore, this approach was replaced by the indirect technique where the interviewer simply listened to what the workman has to say. The finding confirmed the importance of social factors at work in the total working environment. Now, interviewing program ni ile program whereby alikuwa anataka kuangalia the attitude. Now, in our topic, when we look about the selection training and the selection training and of personnel, we're going to look at the training techniques which have been brought about by a different person, but most of the time the Mayo also brought about the techniques we can be able to use in understanding of the employee's technique, employee's attitude. Just to mention, where he explained that most of the times when you are having selection or when you're having recruitment of personnel, you recruit a person as a whole. Recruitment whereby unatafuta, you are job seeking, ama job seekers. That is what we call the recruitment. And then you have the selection where you are looking at the best person to fill a particular position. Now, most of the employers, they don't check mostly on only the qualification of you. They also check on your attitude towards the organization. That's why they can perform different attitude tests. About the amplitude test, they can perform amplitude whereby wanaangalia hasira zako zimefika wapi. How best can you be able to handle pressure within the organization? Some organizations where we go for an interview, they may not really take you to what you know, understand. Maybe they can take you to a hotel, they check how do you eat, how do you smile, how do you talk to people, how do you relate with people, how best can you be able to handle a frustrating scenario. Do you love laughing? Are you moody? So they look at the attitude. So these interviewing programs, walikuta one group was subjected to an environment where ulikuwa unaangaliwa your attitude, your amplitude test, your level of how best can you be able to relate with a person, unakasirikanga to what level, when ukasirika, how best do you handle your situation? Are you a person who is an extrovert? Are you an introvert? But this other group, it was not given that liberty to do that. So alikuja kuangalia akaona the people who are within the environment or the attitude which is best to them, they can be able to work more because the company or the organization has already taken care of your attitude. So if you have a positive attitude towards life, then you're going to have a positive impact to the organization. So the Mayo, I realized that people are not only motivated by money, but also their attitudes. What is their attitudes in life? So if the attitude is positive, then they're going to have a positive or an upward increment in production. And lastly, we can look in terms of the bunker wiring test room experiment, where I say it was observed that group evolved on its own production norms for each individual workers, which has made lower than those set by the management. Because of this, workers will produce only that much, therefore, thereby detecting the incentive system. Those workers who try to produce more than the group norms were isolated, harassed, punished by the group. Hii in short ni kusema kwa group moja akawaacha they set their own standards. Wakajiambia, sisi will producing 100 steels. Na hii group ingine they set their standard, the management set the standards on what they're supposed to produce. They found out that the group which has set their own standard, they will achieve their standard. But the group which the management is the one which has set the standard, they will not be able to achieve the standard. Why? In this case, it's happening that for group, when you are, it happens, maybe let's assume when you are having a group discussion. Alafu mkasema, maybe Waziri Saidia Ruth, you'll have one group. Then Mercy, Wedwin, you have another group. Mkaambiana, kwa hii group yetu, tutakuwa tuna discuss topic 2. So a member of your group, if it comes with a question in topic number 4, mtamwambia wewe wacha kiherehere, si ndio? Relax, tulia topic 2. We are still in topic 2. Wacha kutoa swali nyingi kwa topic 4. Because you will tend as like how comes you study topic 4 and yet we said we're going to discuss only topic number 2. That means you unaweza kuona mtu kama ni outcast, kama betrayer, he's going to be harassed, he's not going to be feel part of it. In the same case, when you are in class, maybe when uko tunasoma, alafu pate mwanafunzi mmoja kila wakati mwalimu akiuliza swali ni yeye amejibu. Kila wakati mwalimu akiuliza swali ni yeye amejibu. He tends to be having no friends within the class. Why? People wanasema huyu ana maringo, huyu anajua sana, huyu anafanya hivi. So that's what we call the bank where alikuwa anaangalia the people within the company. Daniel, inakutoa na kurudisha ndani. What is happening, Daniel? Dan? Are we together? I believe you're together with Daniel. Lakini anatoka, anarudi na inamtoa. Dan? Uko sawa? So we're saying that the norms or a particular group, once they set their norms, once they set their standard, once they set their culture, they tend to achieve what they are set. And therefore, when you act contrary to the group norm, when you act contrary to the group culture, then you are going to be like an outsider, going to be like harassed, going to be outcasted within the group. So, in short, the Hawthorne study, it tried to understand how humans relate, how workers can be able to work effectively within the organization by having different variables. Variable number 1 is lighting, whereby walipatiwa lighting, how inakupatiwa lighting, and the people who have lighting worked more, but even if the lighting was reduced, they still continue working. Why? Because of that sense of belonging. It's like saying that as an example, when you have different departments within organization, and then a manager, maybe the appropriator comes within the organization, aseme, leo nimepatia finance lunch. Finance people watakuwa wanajisikia kwa hiyo kampuni. Wasema, sisi tumepewa lunch peke yetu kwa hii kampuni. So they will tend to work more than even the others. Why? Because of the variables, not because of the money they're getting, no, but because of the variable that subjected themselves in. So, Eton Mayo, the same case, I'll try putting as different variables, kuona how human relates within or being subjected to different environment. Number 1, like a lighting, lighting in a work. The more you are increasing the lighting, also the more you're also getting the output. Though there is no correlation. Hakuna ile hiyo, you cannot be able to come up with a graph. You say when you put more light, you get more output. When you reduce more light, you reduce the output. No, there was no that perfect relation. Number 2, he gave one group incentives whereby he gave them the rest periods, the working hours which were defined. He also gave them the physical condition which were favorable. And the other, yes, Mercy? Yes, Mercy? And the other group, they were not, yes, Mercy? Yes? Speak up kidogo tusikie.
Network yangu inasumbua, niko sawa?
Uko sawa?
Network ndio inasumbua.
What? So you're saying in one group akaipatia the physical condition, akaipatia rest hours, akaipea defined working condition, akaona the more this group has been given this, they are working more as compared to the other group which does not have all that. Then number next the other one group akaipatia, akaanza to check on the attitude. Akaanza to improve on the working attitude. Akatafuta the best people with the best mentality, with the positivity, whereby hamkasirishwi, everything is okay. When you complain, the things are going to be done. And then you find out this group works best and achieve more than compared to the group which they are not being checked, they don't care about their human attitude or their attitude. And lastly, akakuja na the wiring or the bank wiring technique, whereby akawaambia what group you're going to do what we call the MBO, management by objective, where you set your own goals and then you try to achieve your own goals, use your means. And this other group akawambia, now this the norms or the achievement of this group is going to be done, going to be set by the company. And then the two were able to work differently. And therefore, there was a relation, a positive relation between the relations within the productivity and also the management rooms or the management norms within the organization. Let's go to the contribution of the health role studies. Umelewa the health role studies? That is a very common question. You can expect a question on health role studies in an exam, especially this time. Now that we are looking at the hustler nation and how best it can be able to improve on economic environment within the country. No, it is Hawthorne. HAWTHRONE. Yes. Thank you, Saidia. I'm saying you expect a question on health role studies in your paper and the contribution. Hawthorne. No, I'm saying you expect a question. Wacha kulala. I say you expect a question on the Hawthorne study in your paper. Yeah. Now, contribution of the Hawthorne studies. An important feature of the Hawthorne experiments are, number one, business organization is basically a social system. And we say, we discuss what is a social system. Say a social system is a system which is an open system, and therefore it interacts with the environment freely, and therefore affected by the environment, and it also affects the environment. So business organization is basically a social system. It is not just a economic system, because it interacts with people. We need people. We help in improving the people's mentality and all that. Number two, the employer can be motivated by the psychological and social ones, because his behavior is also influenced by feelings, emotions, and attitudes, and they only rely on commands. That is what we talk about there, the contribution of the Hawthorne. Remember, Hawthorne, his contribution comes from the variables they subjected the workers in and the results from the studies. Number 3 is about the management must learn to develop cooperative attitudes and to not rely merely on command. As you can see on the one of the variables whereby MIO subjected one group to be able to set their own standard and achieve them, but the other group, the standards to be set by the company or management of the company, and the people, personnel, tries to achieve what had been set. Then participation is very important because of an important instrument in human relation movement in order to achieve organizational goals. MS is about group psychology, where I said it plays an important role in any business organization. Why? Because we must rely on the informal groupings. Remember, informal groups, what Edu has asked, if the informal group can be able the gossip help in business, and we said yes. So the Eton-Meyer recognizes also that when you have an informal group, remember one of these variables, alipatia, one of the group he gave the different variables, for example, the working environment, akaipatia timing for them to be able to set their own standards, and in that case, he encouraged on them interaction between the people. And in this case, he realized that when you give them people those ones, they tend to work more. And that's in terms of their contribution of the Hawthorne studies to management theories, and especially the use of management within the organization. Any question on the Hawthorne studies and the contribution of the Eton-Meyer? So anytime you're talking about the human relation and you have not speak about Eton-Meyer, then that is not a human relation, it's something else. Anytime you talk about the human relation in management, you're supposed to come up and discuss much more on the Hawthorne studies, or what you call the Eton-Meyer contribution towards to Hawthorne development. Read for me that question again. I do. Edwin, is my question? Edwin? Edwin? Waziri?
Yes, mwalimu.
Nisome question ya Edwin?
Iko hapa.
Hebu nisome your question.
Ay,
If a
wacha
question
niangalie.
comes,
Ametuma hapa kwa group asema if a question comes like this, describe the shift from production oriented management to behavioral management. How do we approach such a question, madam?
Nani atamsaidia before I approach it? Nani atamsaidia?
Describe the shift from production oriented to behavioral.
Who will help before I intervene?
I just want to say something. Yeah, both those people who are dealing with efficiency, they were looking at the production by the end of the day, and the end result. Na hawa watu wa behavioral pia they're looking at production, but they are dealing with effectiveness. So how people behave, na wale kule wakaangalia hiyo another relation. So I don't know what he means by production to behavioral, unless it is another one. Because that, by the end of the day they were looking at that, but now this one is efficiency oriented. The other one is looking at, like the Taylor was looking at efficiency of the process. Fayol was looking at the functions, and this other guy, Max Weber, is looking at the relation between the people. But by the end result, ni production, according to me.
That question, when you say shift from production-oriented to behavior-oriented, in a nutshell, it's just asking you, can you explain the shift from classical to behavioral? So, in other words, it's just asking you, can you give us the disadvantage of classical, which brought the behavioral in place? Can you give us the critics?
I have a question.
Yes, ask.
What is what it means? What about this relationship behavioral? What are they targeting? The end contribution?
The end contribution, all of them, it's achieving the organizational goal, the production, it's okay. But in this case, in this context, this production inaangalia kuhusu the efficiency of work, of getting that item, the output. Sawa? Kwa hii context yetu, ana assume that organization, it has the goals. There is a goal with the organization, not really production. There is that goal. In every organization, we have the aim, why an organization is formed. For example, is for profit making, for reaching society, for to the society. Others are making for achieving the growth and all that. So when Aksema, can you shift between from production to behavioral? We are not really concerned in achieving the outputs, but we are really concerned in how do we achieve the output. Are we together? Waziri, are we together?
If it came kwa exam, obviously singeacha empty. I also, when I read the question, I was thinking on the same lines, by the way. But then since we in class, sasa imagine swali kama hilo, they're confusing us, jamani. Wazungu huko wanafundishwa vile watatengeneza simu, sisi tuulizwe production and be. Hata naenda AI.
So ni kama akwambie ya kwanza product, ya pili it is the way to achieve the product. So hapa in a not really, no, Ruth, no. Hapana, Ruth, hapana. Behavioral iliangalia on the human element, the importance of human element in achieving organizational goals. So, when you are talking about the human element, now the other things now comes in. Not efficiency and effect. No, not really latter, but it checks on human element. It discusses on human element, whereby we are discussing human element in a broad way, where ukikuja kazini, kuna time unafika unakuja kazini, unazalipa pesa nyingi sana, lakini ile environment hauko, unataka kuresign. Mtu anakuuliza, "Ai, madam, unafanya pesa mingi, kwa nini unataka kutoka?" Namwambia, mimi huko, I cannot work from 8 to 8. Or I cannot work from 7 to 8. Or I cannot be able to be somebody can be able to toss with my feelings left, right, and center. or someone cannot be insulted every time. I can't see. There are so many reasons. You're not motivated only by the factor that you're getting salary, but you're motivated by the other factors, the environment that you are subjected yourself in. That's what about now the behavioral approach. Iliangalia all those factors, but the if a classical approach, haikuangalia hizo factors as a human concept. Iliangalia the product concept. Iliangalia, are you able to achieve your goals? Are you able to follow the rules? Have you qualified are you fit for that job? And if yes, then you're good for the job. Without checking, yes, I can be in that job, but I can be sick. What happens if I get sick? Am I going to be paid or not? What happens when I'm not able to deliver according to the standard? Remember, hii ni still company. Unaweza dungwa na machine, unaweza umia mikono, unaweza hata kufia kule ndani. So unaangalia, are they providing favorable working conditions? That is, now, swali ya Edu, you explain the shift between the production and production from the production element to now behavioral. In short, anakuambia, can you give me the criticism of the classical approach? Sasa wa Edu? Edu, ko sawa hapo? Confirm whether you're okay, we continue. Karibu. Now, number 2, on the behavioral approach, on the classical, remember, we're looking at the behavioral theory of management. So we can say, first go to understand the behavioral approach. We understand number 1, the human relation, and number 2, the behavioral science theory of management. And it says that behavioral science theory combines elements of psychology, sociology, and anthropology to provide a scientific basis for understanding employees' behavior. It examines why employees are motivated by specific factors such as social needs, conflicts, and self-actualization. It recognizes individuals and the needs for managers to be sociable. The behavioral approach is unique from the human relation theory in that it emphasizes on the leadership as a determining factor in the management process. It presents an increasing focus of group relation and group behavior in organizational effectiveness. The objective of the behavioral science is the ability to predict the future employees' behavior. Now, human relation, tulisema inaangalia on the human factor, on the human personnel, on how you can be able to relate within the organization. That's why a Tonmayo study comes in that place. But in this case, the behavioral science theory, from the word science theory, ilikuwa inaangalia on how a human behavior can be able to act or can be able to do in a particular situation. For example, we can be subjected to the same situation, or this is a common example. People always say, when you have 2 people and you give you give a glass, but you don't fill a glass of water, and you give each a glass. One person will say this glass is half empty. Another person will say this glass is full empty. Is half full. And these people, all of them they have the same mentality. They have they're right. I mean, they're right. Actually, it's half empty. This one is half full. But the attitude of the perspective, you can be able to pick a person who is a leader, and you can pick a person who is a follower. A person who says it's half empty, most of the times is a follower, because he always needs more. He always demands more. He always requires more. But a person who says half full, this means the person who is optimistic in life. And therefore, being an optimistic, you can be able to say this person can be able to go far because he has a positive attitude towards life, or toward a particular scenario. So on the behavioral science theory, it tries to understand much more. It tries to predict on the human behavior. It says, Emma, it explains that when you subject a person to this kind of a condition, he is likely to act in this case. I was reading a certain book about the human perspective. And the human perspective, where they discuss about the narcissism and the psychopath and all those kind of aspects. A narcissist, a person, most of the time is a mental condition. They say narcissism is a mental condition, and a narcissist is a person who is very positive in life, and it's workaholic. He's workaholic, and he loves being in an environment. Now, a narcissist can be able to subject you to a particular environment so that you can be able to act, because he's like a chess player. A chess player whereby unajua nikikwekea hii utatoa queen. Nikitoa queen, I'll use the king. So when you're playing chess, it's a mental game. So when you're playing chess and you have done something, or you have placed a card, and you are likely to know this person, nitapatia hii na yeye anipatie hii nyingine. Nitafanyia hivi na atanifanyia hivi vingine. So when you can be able to predict that, then you say you have subscribed to the behavioral science approach or behavioral science theory approach. And so because this behavioral science approach, it is the same as the human relation. The only difference is that the behavioral science approach, it focuses, it emphasizes more on how you can be able to predict a person's attitudes or a person's behavior, and therefore coming up with a leadership behavior of a person, able to predict who is a leader and who is not. But all of them are focusing on the human element within the organization. Any question? Masi, tuko sawa? Tuko sawa? This is very easy. Si kama ile nyingine ya kwanza ya classical yenye ilikuwa na mambo mengi. Hii ni rahisi sana sana sana. Yes, Dan?
Go sawa, go sawa.
Yes?
I'm okay.
Oh, you're okay. Okay, let's continue.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, let's continue. So tumesema kwa behavioral approach. Yes, idea. Sawa.
Yeah, mwalimu.
Okay. Let's say in the behavioral, it just deals on the human capital or the human resource or the human aspect within the organization, whether you are able to look at the human relation or the study of the leadership aspect. And therefore, and say for the human relation theory, it focuses on the human and the environment as the organization is going to subjecting them, and also the insight they're going to get. But on the human relation, on the behavioral science theory, look at the human leadership skills, on how about to improve the leadership skills within the organization. Now, another person who will be able to help us understand much more on the behavioral is Abraham theory or Abraham law. Abraham theory. Now, this is something that I'm sure umeshaipata mahali, umeshaisoma, the Abraham Maslow, the Abraham theory, where we say that Abraham is known for the hierarchical of needs, where I'm sure umeshajua is the hierarchy of needs. In other books, we have they have been rewrite it in a different way, but all of them just look about the hierarchy of needs. And not about the hierarchy of needs, we say once a person gets satisfied in a particular hierarchy, in a particular stage, he wants to move to the next stage, and the urge of achieving that stage, it gives him or her a motivation towards achieving the next, and therefore can be able to achieve the goals which they're able to set. So, and the Abraham Maslow is a well renowned for proposing the hierarchical of needs theory in 1943. The theory is a classical depiction of human motivation. This theory is based on assumption that there is a hierarchy of 5 needs which each individual can strive to achieve. The urgency of these needs varies. Number 1 is a psychological need. These are the basic needs, that is the air, water, food, clothing, shelter. In other words, the physiological needs are the needs for basic amenities for life. Then you have the safety needs. Safety needs, these include physical, environmental, and economic safety and protection. For instance, job security, financial security, protection from animals, family security, health security, etc. Then you have the social needs, where the social needs include the needs for beloved, the affection, care, belonging, and also friendship. And that is about the esteem needs. The esteem needs are the 2 types of esteem, either internal esteem or external, or that is the self-confidence, competence, achievement of the same, and also external, which because the recognition, power, attention, and also admiration. And lastly, the self-actualization need. This includes the urge to become what you are capable of becoming, what you have the potential to become. It includes the need for growth and self-contentment. It also includes the desire for gaining more knowledge, self-service, creativity, and being aesthetic. The self-actualization needs are very fully satiable as an individual growth psychologically or physiologically. Opportunity keeps growing up to continue the growth. So huyu Abraham Maslow, I'm sure kama ulisoma business study in your primary, ulisoma the hierarchy of needs, where ulikuwa wasema number 1 is food, shelter, and clothing. Then number 2, ukasema ni social protection, protection. Number 3, ukatoka about love, intimacy. And then number next, we talk about the needs for intimacy, and lastly 5, about the self-actualization. And then you ask yourself, where were you? When you strive to achieve, when you have different employees who are at different level, they will tend to behave differently. When you have a struggling employee, an employee who comes within organization so that they're able to get the basic needs, that is the food, shelter, clothing, and all that, he will tend to behave differently from an employee who is just there to be seen working in the big company, who is just there to be seen working in a particular organization, or it has been his or her desire to work within the organization. Therefore, akifanya kazi hapo anafeel niko sawa. For other people, they want that esteem to come either from within, at least I have achieved, or from outside, whereby everyone will say the manager of a particular company X is so and so. So this person feels so good when he's referred to that. But the other person who doesn't even feel that good when he's referred, he feels good when he gets money to achieve his basic goals, his basic needs. So the Abraham Maslow, he's very known for coming up with the hierarchy, whereby he say once this hierarchy of individual needs, the more you satisfy one need, you tend to have an urge to satisfy the next. And in that case, you're going to strive working more towards achieving your objective. And when you achieve objective within the organization, you're going to achieve the organizational objective. Any question? Iko swali? So you can read about the assumption of the Abraham Maslow and the limitation of the Abraham Maslow. And then you can also read on the theory X and theory Y. In our next topic, our next class, we will not come to do topic 2 again. We will just come to answer some few questions, or I can give you some few questions to go and discuss on your own, and then you can go to the next topic. Iko sawa hivyo? Maybe gusia tu next time, sio kupitia into details. Iko sawa waziri?
Yes, mwalimu.
Saidia. Remember tuko nyuma na class moja. Remember when we were looking at our class mapping, we said one topic is supposed to take at most 2 classes. So tumeenda 3 classes, which is not even beneficial. Sawa sawa. So go discuss on the theory X, theory Y, and theory Z. We're going to just come and discuss them just in a 5 minutes or 10 minutes time. It will be enough for us to discuss theory X, theory Y, and theory Z. Sawa sawa. So we can call that a topic, and you can see this topic is a must for us to be able to know. For example, one of the reference question is August 2023. Maybe you can write somewhere and then you go and check on your own. August 2023, question 3B. The same August 2023, question 5A. April 2023, question 5B. December 2022, question 1A. Imagine question 1 and it's a compulsory question. Now how you about management theories, you lose a lot of marks for nothing. August 2022, question 1A. April 2022, question 2A. So from the trend, you can see that this is a math question. You have to be asked a question on evolution of management, because you cannot claim you know management if you don't know the evolution of it. Where did it come from? How has it improved from one level to another? How has it changed from one level to another? So that is it's a very important topic, especially the classical approach and the behavioral approach. Those two, they are very, very important. And most of the case, the classical approach, the Fayol, the Taylor, the Max Weber, the Parker, the Henry Parkers, and all that. And the first theory of management. Any question? Swali? Waziri, question yote?
Niko sawa mwalimu, asante.
Kama hakuna, haya, usiku mwema, tuonane siku nyingine. Topic number 3 in our next class. Good night, Saidia. Good night.